Okay, I'm here with Constance. Constance, when and where were you born?
I was born in Stockton, California in September of 1951.
Alrighty. And how would you describe your childhood?
Pretty middle class.
So how would you describe like your neighborhood or like part of the city that you grew up in?
It was a nice part of the neighborhood. I mean, it wasn't the richest part, but it was quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not racially mixed. It was an all-white neighborhood.
Okay. What high school did you go to and what was it like?
I went to a very large high school called Amos Alonzo Stagg, after a football player. And this was just before Stockton was desegregated.
Oh.
So because people lived in certain parts of the city, our high school was primarily white. I remember a brother and sister who were African American, and a number of Mexican students, a number of Chinese students, Japanese students.
Gotcha. Do you have a significant other?
Yes, I'm married.
Where or like how did you meet them, or like what was your first interaction with them?
We were both in PhD programs at University of California at Davis, and we happened to rent houses next door to each other, although we didn't know each other. I had a party when I passed my written exams for finishing the degree, and I decided to invite friends over and put on music and dance, and I decided so as not to bother the neighbors, I'd invite them too.
Good plan.
There we go.
All right. And then what is your current work or career path?
I'm an English professor who teaches French once in a while. I'm now part-time after having taught for 24 years here at Hastings College and another 10 in California.
Gotcha. So we're going to move on to like your understanding and experiences of street harassment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what street harassment is?
Just you're going along minding your own business, and people either accost you verbally or physically.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're pretty on par. StopStreetHarassment.org gives a definition of street harassment. It's kind of lengthy, but they say that it's gender-based street harassment is unwanted comments, gestures, and actions forced on a stranger in a public place without their consent and is directed at them because of their actual or perceived sex, gender expression, or sexual orientation. And it includes unwanted whistling, leering, sexist, homophobic, or transphobic slurs, persistent requests for someone's name, number, or destination after they've said no, sexual names, comments and demands, following, flashing, public masturbation, groping, sexual assault, and rape. Mm-hmm. So, like, how do you feel about that definition?
That sounds accurate.
Okay.
I'm all right with that.
Do you have any experiences with street harassment?
I think everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
I can just remember as a teenager, walking to the swimming pool that was 4 or 5 blocks from my house, and we didn't think anything of wearing our swimsuits and just putting a towel over our shoulders to go to the pool, and having lots of people honk and whistle and that kind of thing.
Right. How would you describe the way it made you feel when people
I was flattered at the time. It was only later that it started to bother me. I didn't think anything. I thought it was just admiration, and nobody, did anything that made me feel threatened. I can remember the one time later on, when I was doing my master's degree in Sacramento, I went to a kind of strip mall. I was looking in a few stores and I'm like in my late 20s, and there were two young teenage boys there, and one of them ran by and grabbed my breast and then kept running.
Oh, man.
And my thought then is, man, if I catch up with that little SOB, I'm going to pound his face.
For sure. Do you know of any other experiences that you've had?
Dating experiences where people, men, don't immediately accept no for an answer. I can remember one time going camping in Santa Cruz with a girl I'd gone to high school with but didn't know that well. And it turned out she was mainly dragging boys. We were maybe 19, and so she accepted an invitation to go to these two guys' house and have a beer. This was not my idea of what we were going to do. And meanwhile, she and the other guy took off to go buy beer and left me at the house with the other guy. And he decided he was going to take my clothes off, and there we were, and I resisted and said no, and, really fought back, and finally I had taken off my shoes, I think, when I came in, and he threw me and my shoes out on the front porch and locked the door. I didn't know where I was.
Right.
I didn't know if the other people were coming back. This is before cell phones.
Right. Wow. How would you describe, like, the way it makes you feel when someone, like, harasses you or does this to you? Well, sorry, I guess I already asked that, but...
Well, as I've grown older, it's become insulting. But one of the things I really enjoy now that I'm in my 60s, I spend a lot of time in France. I'm a big Francophile. But nowadays I can walk around in Paris and not be, catcalled or followed or anything else. It's sort of nice to shed that sexuality and enjoy the space that affords me. I have another story, actually, now that I'm thinking about Paris. I went to school in Paris when I was a junior, as part of the abroad program at my college. And, coming from a small town, I'm used to the fact that when you pass people on the street, you say hello and smile. And that is apparently not what you do in a big city. But I was looking for French people to talk to so I could practice my French. And somebody sat down with me in a cafe and said, let's talk. And I was happy with that. We sat there having our coffee and speaking French. It was a great opportunity for me. And then I said, well, I better get going now. Got to get back home. And he said, well, I'll take you home. And I said, oh, okay. Just trusting.
Right.
And then we're going along in his car, and I realized we're not going anywhere near where home was for me. And I said, where are you going? And I said, he said, I'm going to take you out for drinks and dancing. And I said, no, I'm going home. And he simply didn't listen to me. So when we got to this other kind of cafe bar, they're kind of a cross between the two in France, he ordered me a drink, and himself too, and then I got up and said I had to go to the bathroom, and I ducked out the back way and just ran for Granny. And a lot of it's just being innocent and naive and not knowing what you're getting yourself into. and
Sure.
especially in a new environment.
Yeah, in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
What experiences made you feel especially vulnerable, unsafe, or scared?
Well, that one in Santa Cruz that I told
Mhm.
you about, where I was marooned, I didn't know where I was.
Mhm.
I didn't have a car, didn't have a phone. Didn't know what I was going to do. It was nighttime.
Yeah. Um, if you were to experience any of these experiences again, how would you respond differently? Or would you?
Oh, sure. Hindsight's great. I don't know what I could have done differently with the young teenage boy that grabbed my breast if if I didn't expect that and he didn't show up again so I could drag him in and call the police. But I wouldn't have gone with the girl that I didn't know that well. I'd just be more wary. I wouldn't have sat and talked to somebody in a French cafe and then allowed him to give me a ride home.
Right.
Those things, now, well, afterward I knew that in France you walk down the street with this look on your face like, I'm gonna kick your balls.
Yeah.
No hello, no smile.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you feel differently like when you go into public spaces now because of these experiences at all?
Not now.
Okay.
Mm-mm. There's a lot of safety in not being a cute young chick.
Explain why you think street harassment should or should not be taken seriously.
I think, thinking back to my experience as a younger teenager, where I responded positively and took, catcalls and hawks as a compliment, I think that kind of sets young girls into a mindset that they're valuable because of their appearance or their bodies. And while it's nice to appreciate your body, we all go around in them, that's not the only thing that we're worth. And so often I think women are, that's so silently inculcated in our society.
That leads me to another question. Do you think street harassment is a form of gender inequality?
People don't do it to men.
It's true. Have these experiences you've had ever influenced like how you dress, or do you make sure like you're not alone or anything like that, or especially when you were younger?
Oh yeah, yeah. A few experiences kind of wise you up, and you're more careful.
Do you think that there are any like particular hot spots for street harassment or places where you feel you're more likely to get harassed than others?
Not at this age. I really don't.
Gotcha. Have you noticed any differences between, like, within street harassment between Hastings and where you grew up in California?
Well, I moved here when I was almost 40, towing a baby and then pregnant with another. It's a small community. People know I'm married and a mom. So I've never experienced it here, but again, that may be a location, or it may be a product of age.
Gotcha. So kind of on street harassment as a whole, what do you believe causes street harassment? As in, like, why do you think sexually suggestive remarks and such are made towards people, especially if those people are strangers?
I think it's a power thing. I think it's people trying to exert their power over other people. I mean, it might be a come on, but more often than not, it's not really that. It's more like I'm somebody, just taking away your power.
Gotcha. Do you feel that there's a line where street harassment ends and sexual harassment begins?
It's sure blurry to me.
Definitely.
I wouldn't be able to say that there is a line.
Yeah. And then, do you know of any initiatives that have been taken to make more people more aware of street harassment?
I don't know specifically, but I'm aware of women on campus, particularly since Dr. Logan has been on the faculty, who are, putting stickers on their computers, or, displaying the fact that catcalling is not all right with them, that harassment is recognized and rejected, that we're trying to work against it. And I think there's an important growing awareness that that's really damaging to women's sense of themselves.
For sure. And then, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I can't think of anything, but this is really good work, and I'm glad that you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.